amendment to this discussion or wait to determine whether or not this motion were to pass or not and then address that subsequently?
Legally, as we've discussed, that could happen either way. What I typically advise you all is to try not to stack motions just because of the logistical challenges of it. If you believe as a board member that it's appropriate to make the motion, you certainly have the power to do that. But you know, every time I say, please don't stack the motions, we end up with them stacked. So it works out. Either way works out in the long run. I will say also that the motion on the floor to postpone this for a year postpones this proposal for a year. That would take care of this proposal. That's not to say that a board member might make some other proposal down the road.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
Dr. Heath, you mentioned about in the future in the Nolensville area, Page High. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Well, if we are building a school on Clovercroft, then it is very conceivable that we could go Clovercroft south for the rest of the Ravenwood zone over to Nolensville Road and pick up Blunt Creek in that school and remove another group of students for Page High School to help relieve the overcrowding. I mean, that's Page High School is about 140 students under capacity, and that's not a large population of students, but we will have room in that school and the elementary school for another group. It would also relieve and allow us to go with the Nolensville Elementary School for probably another year, because that's been thrown out of cycle too, to relieve some of the what growth of what will be at Nolensville Elementary School.
So you're saying for the new elementary school to pick up, you would be picking up south of Clovercroft and Bent Creek to feed the new elementary school, possibly?
Possibly, yes. And high school would go to...
That would be down to Page. Okay. All right, I didn't think about that one. Thanks.
I would like to make one correction, Mr. McLaughlin. Percentages, and this I think is a common misnomer, because I heard the same thing. The percentage is actually about 19%. You have 50 students in 9th grade, 8th grade, 7th grade who are in this population. Their peers are students at Woodland Middle School. They're not peers of Sunset Middle. So if you look at those populations, you're taking 150 students from a population of 775. So it's not, I heard the 5% figure too, and I went back and looked at it. It averages 19%. There's some years that it's actually 22% in the 8th grade, because the 8th grade is a small class at Woodland. It has 237 kids, where you have 265 kids in later grades. So it's not a huge percentage, but it is a much larger percentage than 5 to 10%. It averages 19.
Mr. Watkins?
2 points of clarification, Tim. Have you calculated if your postponement for 1 year passes, what impact would that have on Ravenwood this coming fall with portables, if any?
I think Dr. Heath could answer that better than I can, but I think the thing is, it depends on the growth. If there's not a lot of growth, then there wouldn't be much difference than there is this year. It all depends on the growth. Is that, you can answer that better than I can, Dr. Heath.
Well, that's correct. It does depend on the growth. You would be losing the potential, and I'm saying at maximum of about 100 students, which if you lost those students, if you lost 100, then you would have 3 portables fewer, or 4, which is about what they have now. If you didn't lose those, then you would have those portables that we currently have there being used another year plus growth. Now, I will tell you that there's not a question that there are more kids at the 6th grade level and 5th grade level than there is at the 7th and 8th. There's in some cases as many as 40 or 50 kids more, particularly between the two schools, because the growth to a large extent has been elementary kids. And so you're probably talking about, if you look at Ravenwood's growth this year, and cutting down some of it, I would not expect Ravenwood's growth to be what it was this year, because they picked up about 40 students, 45 students from home and private school, and that's an abnormal number. So they probably, if they pick up some every year, it's not normal to not have any, but I would say that number probably would drop to between 12 and 20. So you'd have the growth besides that, which was about 50 this year, so probably 2 more portables than we currently have, plus the rental on the 4 units that are there.
And the rental on the 4 that we have now, if we were to go forward with this, how many of those 4 would we lose?
We would lose, if we had 100 students go, I mean, we had 2 grades, and that's saying out of those 2 grades, out of the rising 8th and 9th graders, there would be no grandfathering, because that's 50 students, and there would be some, I understand that, but the max would be 100 students, and that would be about 4 portables, 4 to 5, depending on, well, if I set them in to go 20 to 1, it'd be 5 portables. It just depends on the classes that are in them and how it breaks out. But
So if this proposal were to succeed, we would not be at any portables at Ravenwood, and we would in fact lose 4.
that's correct.
Okay. My question to you, Tim, is are you confident that your commissioners in your district will fund 2 additional portables plus the leasing of the 4 that are there when that many classrooms are empty at Centennial? And let me ask a second question, and then you can respond. I'm not sure what information you would be seeking in a comprehensive look at the total zoning across the county, because the buildings are where the buildings are, and the people are where the people are. So, are you saying a year from now we came back, are we talking about moving people conceivably from Page to Fairview and from Brentwood to Franklin? Are we looking at something so comprehensive? And if so, I wonder why you have such little faith in the organization and the staff that spends literally night and day working at this.
Okay. First of all, I don't have any lack of faith in the staff. I think they do an outstanding and excellent job, so I don't think that has anything to do with this. I think the thing about it is we basically, when we open a new school, or in this case, we spot zone. I think we need to look at it more comprehensive. I think the thing about it is the county commission said they're not going to provide any new schools, but the county commissioners I've talked to, and to answer your portable question is, and the ones in the district and some of the others have basically said is that doesn't mean they're not going to extend onto schools. That doesn't mean they're not going to put in portables. They're not going to fund smaller amounts. They're basically saying is, that they're not going to provide brand new schools over this period of time when the funding's so tough. So I don't think they're at all saying that they're not going to fund anything. I think that we basically have a middle school problem and a high school problem on the east side. And no, I don't think that we're going to pull people over to the far reaches of the county to be able to solve one problem over the other. But I do think we have to look at the buildings that we have, how we're going to be able to utilize those buildings to be able to balance out both middle school and high schools in the area, and then even the new